Okay, well, hello everybody. Welcome to our first session of the Abroad Squad. I'm your host, Emily, with Beyond the States, and today I'm really excited because I am joined by our 3 student ambassadors who are all living out their dreams of getting a degree abroad in Europe. So I thought we could all go around and just introduce ourselves. So give us your name, where you're from, what you're studying, and what university you're going to. So Milo, why don't we start with you?
Super. I'm Milo. I am from Kansas originally in the United States, but I moved to Prague to study architecture. I study at the Architectural Institute of Prague, and I love it here. It's amazing.
Awesome. Who wants to go next? Willa?
Sure. I'm Willa. I'm originally from California in the US. I live in Edinburgh now. I study at the University of Edinburgh and I study linguistics and social anthropology, and I really love it.
Awesome. And Maddox?
Hi, I'm Maddox. I'm originally from Iowa in the States. I'm studying business at the University of Limerick in Ireland, and it's a lot of fun.
Awesome. Sounds good. Well, now that we've introduced ourselves, I'll dive into our first question, which is kind of a big question, but I wanted to know what made you guys start considering studying abroad in the first place? And was there like a specific moment where you thought, okay, I'm actually doing this. I'm not going to pursue the typical route of going to a US college?
I think for me, I was pretty sold on it early on. I started thinking about it when I was a sophomore in high school, and it only got real after I got accepted to the university that I now go to. It was the first one that I got accepted to, and I sort of realized, crap, I have to get my visa together, I have to get housing, I have to like prove I have this amount of money and so forth. And that's when I was like, oh, okay, like I'm leaving the States in like 3 months, and I wasn't ready for that sort of mental switch. Was it different for you guys?
I would say, I mean, the big turning point for me, I was actually in Prague because I took a gap year. I was traveling all around, and it was just a lot of like new place, new place, new place. And I called up my parents and was like, look, like I don't think I want to go to school in the US anymore. I had my whole list, and I'm just like, this seems exhausting. And I've now seen a whole bunch of cities that I can see myself living in. So that was the big turning point for me. But it was similar. Like Limerick was the first school I got accepted to. And there was a real kind of shift when it was, it wasn't just a dream anymore. It was like, no, like I can wholeheartedly go to school in another country if I choose to. And it made it really exciting.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Was it also Maddox for you like a short turnaround time where you got it at your acceptance and then like you have to leave in 3 months essentially?
Actually, I had the summer, so similar, 3-4 months, yeah.
Okay, yeah. And how about you, Willa? How was the experience for you?
I had a similar turnaround time, but my like experience getting to the point of going to school abroad was a little different. I was really convinced I was going to stay in the States. I hadn't traveled much before applying to colleges, and then I went to Ireland actually, and that was like one of the first times I had been out of the country, and I realized I didn't want to be in the States anymore, and I wanted to go kind of to the UK and that area, and so I applied to a lot of schools in the States and then just kind of completely mentally disconnected from them and like didn't really care if I got in or not. And I heard back from a couple of schools in Ireland and the UK, and I realized that like that was going to be the decision for me. And then I had the summer to prepare, and then I was in the UK.
Yeah, definitely. That's even a whole nother topic we can dive into. I feel like another time I was thinking is like the whole process of just like preparing too is a lot. And I feel like that's a lot mentally to kind of wrap your mind around. Like, well, it's one thing applying to schools, it feels very hypothetical. Like it's still, you have the option of like staying in the US but then once you get the acceptance and like you are like realizing, oh my gosh, I have to pack up my life. I, have to figure out my visa, housing. It's like a lot. And for me, it was also during the summer when I got my acceptance like to my German university. It was a really short turnaround time. And I was kind of like it was a lot because then also you're trying to like see friends and family and like
Mhm.
before you leave. But it kind of like it goes by super quickly. Like it almost, if I think back, for me, I don't know about for you guys, it feels like a blur. But and then you're like you just feel like you teleported somehow, like how did I end up here? But then also like the process is like a lot to wrap your mind around even mentally. So yeah, it's interesting
Yeah.
that you guys all have like similar kind of like trajectories and similar timelines, even though you're all going to different universities.
I feel like when you're researching the schools, it's so easy to like think of it in a vacation mindset because that's what you're used to when thinking about Europe. And so
Mhm.
it's all sort of dreamy. You're like, yeah, I could, live in this 300-year-old building, go to school in even older building and so forth. And then once you get the acceptance, you're like, oh, like that's my future. That's all of what I'm going to be experiencing. And it's a big shift, honestly.
Yeah, no, it is really. Yeah, no. And also, like, I was thinking, like, jumping off of that, because you all mentioned, like, applying to schools. Were there any other countries or schools you were considering? And, like, what kind of made you, like, land on the city? Because that's another thing. You're choosing a country, then you're choosing a city, then you're choosing a university, and you're choosing, like, a program, too. It's a lot to kind of, like, juggle and balance. Kind of what your specifics are location wise, and then also your lifestyle preferences coupled with like what you want to study, your career and academic goals. So yeah, kind of like what was that like for you guys? Were there any other areas you were considering, or how did you break down like and decide where you wanted to be?
Originally for me, I was looking at schools first in Prague because I love the city, but I didn't really know what I wanted to study yet. So after I kind of broke that down and realized, I want to go the business route. I want to learn how to, make my own business, start my own business. Then I broke it down a little bit more, and I ended up applying to 3 universities. I applied to TBS, Toulouse Business School in France. I applied to NHL Stenden in the Netherlands, and of course, the University of Limerick. Um, and for me, my biggest kind of factor that I was considering was I wanted a really strong program and really strong student experience. I thought to myself, everyone kind of says the idea of like you make your own university experience. So my thing for me is just as long as my university has lots of opportunities for students, clubs, societies, events, all that sort of stuff, then I should be able to find something that I enjoy. And from that, I would say that all 3 of the universities I had really strong student experiences. But after I got into Limerick and did a little bit more digging on just how much of an emphasis that they put on it, that was kind of what sold me on that decision.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because I feel like all international like departments aren't the same. Some are really like focused on international students, some are, and obviously a lot are like even like trying to bring in more international students. So yeah, that's another thing. It's interesting because I feel like a lot of people worry too with going to a European university that they think about like American universities. It's one of our biggest myths. Like I even made a post about it recently that like you're missing out on the social life if you go to a European university. It's like, okay, I'm missing out on frat parties. Like I don't really find that like, oh, what an L, like what a loss for me. But like no, there's so many like amazing student experiences, and like obviously like I've been to 2 European universities, and like I've been connected with like Erasmus students. There's so many events, sports classes that you can participate in. It's not just like in the US where if you're doing a sport, you have to be like a pro at it. You can like sign up for classes and get connected with other students. So yeah, I know a lot of people worry about that. And but yeah, I feel like if you can kind of get an idea, and it's something that I think is important for students to look at when they are applying to universities, is kind of like seeing like what resources there are for international students and what outlets they have. So I think that's like really smart, Maddox, that you looked at that and took that into consideration, because something that not everyone thinks about. Sometimes, people are thinking about. Obviously, there's so many factors to consider. So sometimes some of the factors slip through the cracks, but I think that's a really important one to consider. But anyways, Willa, what about you? Because I know I think it was pretty clear for you that you wanted to be in the UK. But I know you mentioned you applied to other schools in the UK. What sold you like on Edinburgh?
Yeah, so I actually initially thought I was going to school in Ireland. I had almost fully committed to Trinity, and I hadn't heard back from any other universities in the UK. And I went to Ireland, as I said before, and I toured the campus and I talked to some students, and it just kind of didn't really feel like I would fit there. I look for like very specific things when it came to a campus. I was really just I don't know, just I thought that I would have like a gut feeling, like when you know type of thing. And I got my acceptance for Edinburgh, and I just kind of felt like it just felt right to me. I had talked to some students, and it just seemed like kind of similar to what Maddox was saying, like the student opportunities and like the clubs and the community, it just all seemed to really align with what I wanted. And also for my course, anthropology is something really important to me, and I knew I wanted to study that in university. And Trinity didn't have that as an option. And Edinburgh had like one of the strongest anthropology programs in the UK. So that was kind of just a given for me, that it was, good for my course and would fulfill me academically.
Yeah. And had you been to Edinburgh before or no? I mean, it's a
No.
beautiful city. I feel like even just from like photos and like videos, you can kind of like, I mean, it's gorgeous. You can't deny it. And then also the university is excellent as well. And it's a beautiful campus. So I can see why, like, I know that's another thing, like people are used to like touring campuses in the US. I know that's like a big thing you do in your like junior and senior years, like touring colleges. And I know it's a bit more difficult to do that on the other side of the world. So it's kind of, you do have to do like a lot more research, but I do think it's like, I honestly think it's like better because you're not just seeing things on the surface. Like you, of course, you can get that gut feeling. Like I totally relate to what you're saying, just about a lot of things, like having that gut feeling if something's right or not, whether it's a job opportunity or a school or anything like that. But yeah, I think that like obviously with like choosing a university, it's like doing that. Like, I feel like going abroad, you're researching even more oftentimes. I don't know if you guys felt that way, but I felt like when I was applying to schools in Europe, I was researching far more than when I was applying to my US universities, like about the campus culture and stuff. So, or the city. But maybe that's just me.
No, that was something I totally did. I was originally looking at schools in Poland. And just because, well, it wasn't that I wanted to go to Poland necessarily, but it was just that I had a lot of my decisions based on like economic factors. And I was like, okay, the cost of living there is much cheaper and tuition costs and so forth. But then as I was doing research and specifically into like those international student life things, what is it like to associate with other English speakers and international people, I was like, I'm not finding a lot of like good signs. There's nothing that says it's bad necessarily, but for some of the technical schools that I was looking at, it's like, okay, they're not having a lot of fun, it seems. So that's when I started looking at bigger cities, and I was like, okay, there's much more, I don't know, life or action in bigger cities. And so that's when I sort of broadened my search, and I found the school I currently go to. But like Willa said, it was also sort of like a gut choice. It just felt, I hadn't been to Prague. I'd never been to Europe, but it just felt right.
Yeah, no. And once again, Prague is another gorgeous city that you can just see from the photos. It's beautiful, and there's a pretty like robust international community there, especially
Yeah, exactly.
tons of English taught programs. We like Beyond the States sends so many students to Prague. And yeah, there's a lot of great schools there. But yeah, and of course, cost factor is understandable too, which kind of like leads in my next question. But I do, a lot of people do think like, okay, if I'm studying in a capital city, it's going to be expensive. And for sure, there are some capital cities that are expensive, but not all are. Like you can, move to, for example, Poland, or the Czech Republic. And of course, like as you also mentioned in your recent reel that you made, Milo, which I highly recommend for those who are listening to check it out, where you talk about like working in Prague and like cost of living too, that like cost of living expenses are lower. Of course, salaries are lower too, but oftentimes like you as a student, if cost is a concern, you can get by, or get by maybe not be the right word, but a lot of students I know are getting by on our student budgets, but you can like live there comfortably, and it's not something to just rule out automatically. There's so many affordable universities or affordable cities across Europe that have lots of great international programs. So yeah, but anyways, we mentioned cost. So I kind of want to go into the next question. I know a big reason why a lot of people seek out our services at Beyond the States is because the cost comparison is a huge thing between studying in the US versus studying in Europe. Oftentimes it's a lot more affordable, whether it's you're doing the public school option or the private school option. So of course that might be a factor for you guys, but I just wanted to kind of get an idea of what were some of your top reasons for choosing Europe over staying in the US, or why didn't you choose a US university? Was it cost, or were there other factors involved?
What I always tell everybody is that I could have stayed at my home university. I'm from Lawrence, Kansas, and that's where the University of Kansas is based. Or I could have gone to Prague, and they would have been the exact same cost. But my lifestyle would be like black and white. If I lived at home and went to KU, I would, in order to keep it the same price, I would have to live at home. I would probably have to like survive without a car, which is kind of torture if you're, living in the States. And so that would already completely affect my social life. And then third, it's the same town that I went to high school in. So like it would be kind of, I'm not growing. But then I could move to Prague and I could make a completely new international friend group. I could travel a lot and explore a lot and learn what it's like to be in a new culture and a language. And so when I compared those two, and I was like, that's the same price. I was like, okay, I clearly know what I'm going to do. But of course, not everybody has that same option. Like, I think I got a discounted price at my home university because my dad teaches there. And then in Europe, everything's a lot cheaper. So yeah, it was an obvious sort of choice for me.
Yeah, no brainer. It sounds like the lifestyle is night and day. And obviously, like your quality of life, I feel like I would imagine is a lot better in Prague, where, you can like have like this huge international friend group and live in a beautiful city. It's very safe there as well. It's one of the safest cities in Europe. So that's kind of a no-brainer, and I see why that was an obvious choice for you.
I didn't even know it's the safest city in Europe.
Yeah, it's one of the, like currently I've been doing like research and for like some social posts, and I found that out. So that's great. Another great factor. And yeah, it's crazy that like your home university in the US would cost like, did you say it was the same, or?
So like how it would work is like I would have in-state tuition, and then if your parents are on the faculty, then you get like half of your credits for free.
Yeah.
And so that massive discount would still make it the same price. If I was anybody else or wanted to go to a different school, the cost
That's
would like
that's
skyrocket.
insane. And you would still, like you said, have to live with your parents, and you wouldn't be able to have that independence of like living,
I know it would be
abroad.
such a bummer.
So yeah. But anyways, what about the rest of you guys?
I had like a similar thing with tuition at a state school versus in the UK, but the tuition for any of the schools I went to in the States was like double what my tuition is now in the UK. So that was kind of just like a no-brainer. And there were like obviously extra costs. Traveling back and forth is pretty expensive, and like food, and I live in a self-catered accommodation, so I have to buy all my own food and cook all my own meals. So there's like some differences there, but overall, because of like quality of life and safety and just like overall the cost is less than if I had stayed in the States. So it just really did feel like a given to just go to the UK.
Mhm.
Yeah, I remember too, Willa, you mentioned like another thing you touched on Milo and like is public transport, like the access to it. Willa, you mentioned in one of that I'm gonna post soon one of your recent videos you created about the Young Scots card. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that so we can also get an idea of like how much you could be saving?
Yeah, so the Young Scot card is this like card you can get in Scotland. It's given, you can apply for it if you're between 18 and 26, I think. Um, and it basically just gives you free public transportation. Like you tap the card like you would any other card, and it's just free, like buses, trains, trams. It's really helpful. And then it'll give you like discounts on other forms of transportation, like ferries and things like that. And you can use it as a form of ID. It's like just, it's great.
Dang.
But yeah, so I take the bus almost every single day, and it's free.
Yeah, and is that for all of Scotland? Like that you can travel anywhere in Scotland and for free?
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's like unheard of. Yeah, that's amazing. And so, Maddox, moving on to you, what were like some of your reasons for choosing the like to study in Europe as opposed to the US?
Yeah, no, I definitely align with Milo on a ton of things. Like just being from Iowa, I had it's like small little farm town. I had kind of milked it for all it was worth. Uh, you know,
I love that with the farm town that
I didn't have anything left to do, right? And so much so that like even my senior year, I was debating just going to a larger high school because I didn't have anything else left. I ended up staying and it was fine, but it was just that sort of piece where I'm like, I don't have anything else left to do. And if I want to get out and go out of state, I'm looking at insane tuition costs. And similar, it would have costed me the same amount of money to go to school in Ireland as it would have to stay in Iowa. Just vastly different change and all of that there, but same thing of totally different lifestyles, totally different whatever. And the thing that baffled me is Ireland is considered one of the more expensive European countries to go to, and yet here I am with this American-sized college fund, looking at it, being like, "Oh, this is great. This is cheap. Like I love it." So it all lined up really well, but it was just that piece. And then after making some friends around the world, realizing that, oh my goodness, if I go to school in Europe, I'm closer to them than I am now. And I've loved it even more because even in my first, 2 semesters, I have friends who are asking me to go see them in France or to go to Poland or go to Amsterdam, right? And it just makes it so exciting of like my weekend and just my trips in general are a whole lot more fun than anything I think I would be doing if I was in Iowa for, the another 4 years.
Yeah. Wow. No, that's a huge lifestyle change. And it's crazy to think like the what ifs. I don't know if you guys ever think about that. Like, what if I didn't find out about this? Or what if I didn't
Yeah.
leave? Like I would just, where would I be? And like it really like I feel like changes you in ways you can't even comprehend, whether it's like, independence or the friends you make that kind of influence you. Like there's actually this really amazing film in French that I watched during my bachelor's that's called The Spanish Apartment. And it's about like an Erasmus student from France who moves to Spain. And he like when he comes back from the experience, like he had all of these like friends he made and from all over the world. And like he kind of, there's like a quote where he like talks about like how his identity now is so rooted in like all of these friendships and nationalities that he's made. And he's like, there's like a quote, I can't remember it exactly, but he's like, oh, I'm like Europe, I'm a real mess now, because he has like all of these like identities. I highly recommend you guys watch it. It's super relatable. It is in French, so if any of you know French, or if not, like
You know French, Emily?
No, I did learn French in high school. Don't know a word of it. I also college, but throughout all of it can kind of understand it, but I had watched it with subtitles. But it really, and it is a Erasmus, so but it really does encapsulate that experience. But yeah, it really kind of opens your worldview. And you know, like you mentioned, Maddox, you did like the gap year, and then building on that, doing like a getting a degree abroad. It's, and then you think about like, oh, I could be back home. And also, I don't know if you guys ever think about your high school self and think about like, oh my God, my high school self would be like so proud of me, or would be like amazed at all I've done, or like I don't know. Do you guys ever think that?
Yeah, yes and no.
Okay.
I crack myself up because I do a lot of journaling, but I look back at like a lot of the perspective or just the view I had on the world before I traveled, and realizing that like if my high school self somehow magically ended up in Ireland for university, I don't think he could have any idea what he was doing or why he was here. So I think a lot of chips kind of fell the right way to get me here. But it was definitely a big shift, and I'm very glad that my mindset changed the way it had. You know, I look at my high school self as rather naive. But yeah, I think I'd be pretty proud of myself.
Yeah, no, for sure. I remember when I mean, I did a study abroad year first, and I remember when I first went in my study abroad year, I was literally having like a crisis over how I was going to use the public transport, because I was like, how do you even begin? How do you know? What do you mean? How do you know the bus? Like, there's just all these random buses out here. How do I know which one to take? And I was like overwhelmed, and like asking one of the prior students about it. It was such a crisis. And now I don't even think about it when I'm taking public transport, because I'm so used to like, I know my bus lines, I know my tram lines. And even if I don't, I know how to like, okay, look at the big screen and see like the departures and see the platform, like little things like that, like really like help with your independence. I mean, maybe it's also for me, I don't like I grew up in like the suburbs in Southern California, so I didn't have public transport or have experience using it. But anyways, little things like that, I like, if it sometimes like pop into my mind. Maybe also now I'm 28, so I'm also like things, I think when you get older, you're kind of like sometimes like you have these little like blips of like memory of something, and that just pop into your head, and you're like, oh my gosh, I thought that, like how? So, but no, I think journaling is also an excellent way to like keep track of like in record of your thoughts, and kind of look back at like, especially in such a monumental change in your life like this, it's really night and day. But
I
yeah.
agree. I feel like I didn't. It's hard to realize that you change if you don't record it somehow. And looking back, I realized like, oh my goodness, in high school, in the States, everything is just so insular. Like you just think this is the way of life, this is how it has to be, and this is how it always is, and how it is around the world too. And now that, you know, we're all out here in a different place and we're realizing that it's so different, it makes me so thankful that I'm doing it at a younger age. I was, when Willa mentioned the young Scott card, actually, I was like, I wonder why they do that. We have something sort of similar in the Czech Republic, and um, I think there's just a big emphasis on everybody in Europe wants these kids to have like good experiences and travel and get new mindsets and so forth. And I think that's so cool. Trying to comprehend some things that my friends are going through at like their home American university, it doesn't make sense to me because I don't actually know how it works back there in the States. I'm just so thankful that, I don't know, I got to move early and experience something new so early on in my life. You know, maybe I will move back to the States. I hope not. But if I do, I still have that sort of experience and mindset that I got while I lived here.
Yeah, like it also is interesting because it's like once it's a weird feeling once the states start to become foreign to you, where you're like, okay, I don't know how the school system even works here. I don't know how this works because I'm so used to this, or your standards for things are so much different. I do
Mhm.
think the European Union does and also just like encouraging students to travel and young people, which I think is beautiful. Like also the Erasmus, I think it's one of the most successful things that the European Union has implemented, all the funding around it. Also like the, public transport and like tickets, for example, in Germany, basically in Germany, you don't pay a tuition fee. You pay like a semester contribution fee, which sounds weird and sketchy, but it's not. But
But it's like $200, right?
yeah, I paid. So mine was on the more expensive side. It was around 400 USD, I believe, thinking about the conversion. And it included a public transportation ticket for the semester that I could use within 2 regions of Germany. So like pretty big regions, that I honestly rarely paid for a public transport ticket unless I was like taking a long distance train to like Berlin or something. So it really encourages mobility. There's also, I've seen a lot of like museums are like free or heavily discounted if you're under, I think it's like 26 or 27. So once you get there, it's like you have so many opportunities to like travel and experience things because there's so much like built into the system to like encourage young people to get out there and see the world. So yeah, I think that's great. And my next question I wanted to touch on because I feel like this is like a rabbit hole we can really get into, but I wanted to ask, I know there's a lot of like outside factors that kind of can be like noise in the background when you're like applying to schools, whether it's like family. I don't know, I know some of my family was a bit skeptical about me doing this process. But like, did you ever second guess your decision or like worry about making that leap, whether it was like outside factors or also just like any doubt stemming from fear? Like, did you guys experience that at all? And if so, like, how did you handle it?
I think I had a little bit of that. I was definitely worried because nobody else from my school really went abroad for college. Like, I went to a very small school. I didn't really have exposure to that. I went through the whole process of applying abroad by myself. Like, I didn't have a ton of help from my college counselor, and so I was kind of worried that like I had done something wrong in the process and I was gonna get there and they were gonna be like, you're actually not enrolled here, you have to go back. Um, just kind of like silly stuff like that. And I think I worked it up a lot in my head. I was just so worried something was gonna go wrong because I think being so far from home, like I could have gone to school on the east coast of the US and like that still would have been far, but I still was in the US. And I think just going like to an entirely different country just made it a little bit scarier. But none of my worries were like actually realized. It was all just stuff I worked up in my head and like I had convinced myself that something was gonna just be terrible. But everything worked out fine. So
Yeah, I feel that. I'm somebody who gets in my head a lot and and not self-sabotage, that's not the word, but like kind of I start to self-doubt myself and be like, okay, this seems too good to be true. Something's bound to go wrong. But I know that can be a real like obstacle for some of us, like ourselves and our inner like thoughts and worries. But yeah. Anyways, Maddox, what about you?
Um, uh, yes and no. I would say when it comes to university, no, but that's because I already took the leave of taking a gap year. But I remember when I was taking a gap year, like friends, family, specifically my aunts and uncles were kind of looking at it as this he doesn't know what he wants, and so he's going to just kind of keep pushing the clock back to making a decision. That isn't the perspective that I had. I just thought it was really silly to go to university and change my mind on my major a whole bunch of times and not be happy versus, experience the world a little bit. To be fair, I did have a fair share of international screw ups and fun stories. But through all of that, it kind of, when I did decide to go to university after all of that, my family, friends, and everything kind of looked at me and they're like, yeah, no, that suits him. And I don't think they saw me coming back to the States, especially kind of when they saw me come back and the US didn't feel like home anymore, which was scary at first. But now it's something where, if people ask, oh, are you homesick or anything? And I'm like, in the States, I'm like, yeah, I'm homesick because I want to go back to Ireland,
Yeah.
So, but I would like similar, like you play it up a lot and you can have a lot of doubts and fears. But very quickly I kind of realized, oh, like there are people here that are in the same boat as me who made the same decision, who made the same leap. And a lot of times the people that do make that choice are really cool people. So you kind of band alongside them, you go on your grocery shopping adventures and figure out how to survive and live and make good friendships through it. And you're in for a good time. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's no matter where you go, it's going to be scary. And so why not, take the big step and just go do something completely new.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like, yeah, you have to eventually, like in life, you have to go out of your comfort zone with anything. So I feel like why not, take the big leap and kind of jump into the unknown, because that is exciting. And, also you mentioned, Maddox, like the international screw ups, but it's like from that you learn, you know what I mean? Like you probably now have and I've made a lot of mistakes too, where I learned from them. And it's good I learned that early, because I have my boomer family members who come visit and they're making international screw ups. Forgetting to not verifying their ticket or getting pickpocketed because they, were not looking at their belongings. I mean, things like that. It's like no shame around that, but it's just something that it's like, it's, you kind of learn like sooner or later. Like it's it's just all about like navigating a new country and stuff. It's and it's great because I feel like once you do learn, it's like I feel like I can go to almost like any country in Europe and feel pretty comfortable and confident navigating the system. Even though it is different, it's like I just feel like I have that blueprint down of like knowing how things work and feeling comfortable and confident. And establishing that at like a really young age, I think is so crucial, because it just really like makes you more independent. Whereas in the States, like I would be like, still living with my parents and, having them, like my mom or my dad make dinner and things like that. Whereas like when, you're like a, student, especially in Europe where you have like an actual kitchen. I remember I visited my brother in Arizona he was studying in Arizona, and he just had like a microwave in his room. There was no kitchen even. Like he had to like go walk to a kitchen that was like a shared one that like was far away, and like, or go to the cafeteria, which is insanely expensive. And yeah, and I'm like, okay, like in my like shared accommodation in Germany, I like was cooking and stuff and like doing that, which I wouldn't probably have been doing as much if I was in the States. So there's just so many like life skills and soft skills you learn from the process. But
Totally. I think one thing that I sort of put together after my first year moving is, well, I had a couple friends that went to out-of-state schools, and one went to Vermont, another went to California. And so we were in contact a lot because we were all sort of going through the same things, but they're in the States, I'm in Europe. And some of them actually transferred and went back to our hometown after their first semester. They're like, this isn't for me, it's too scary, maybe I'm not making friends. And so something that I sort of realized is that even if it's scary or hard or stressful at first, here, when you're living in a big city and it's not just a college town, it's a lot easier to sort of adapt and carve out the life that you want. But in the States, sometimes maybe if you can't find your niche at school, then it's like, all right, what am I doing here? So that's something I'm so thankful for, is that here I know that no matter what city I'm in, there's always going to be so many options and, I don't know, communities to join, that I'm never truly stuck and have to, go back home.
Yeah, no, and I think like being so far from home, you're kind of also like forced to get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, you've
And
wedged yourself in this corner already. You gotta enjoy it.
exactly. I'm naturally very introverted, and I kind of like trained myself not to be introverted through, which I subconsciously did, I think, from just living in Europe, because I got to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to be the icebreaker sometimes. I'm going to have to, kind of, like start up a conversation with someone in my German class, or, sign up for some event where I don't know anyone going, but I'm just going to sign up and I'll make friends through it. Like, it was really uncomfortable at first, but I think it's like, I don't know if I would have, had that in the States as much. Because I was literally just forced to do it, which it's helped me so much, because now I'm more confident. I am, less, not that being introvert is a bad quality, but of course it's helped, like even just with things like job interviews, I feel more confident talking to new people because I've had to do it a bazillion times, and I'm used to talking with people from all over the world. Like, intercultural communication skills is such a big thing too. So yeah, it's just like the pros are endless. So, and yeah, even though it seems scary at first. And that's another thing I think maybe for our next episode too, we can talk about making friends abroad. I think that's a topic that would resonate with a lot of us. And I know it sounds like all of you guys have kind of found your outlets for making friends, whether it's like, work, or through classes, or through just extracurricular. So yeah, I think that would be a good topic to dive into in the future. So yeah, and as far, I have a few more questions so we can see like how many we get through. But how were your first few months adjusting like?
Mine weren't great, honestly. Like, I'll
Okay.
be completely honest. And the thing is when I was going through it, I didn't realize it at the time. But now looking back, I'm like, dang, I was not doing everything that I could be. Definitely not having as much fun as I am now. But that's just part of the process. You're doing one thing at a time. You're becoming comfortable with public transportation, new people you're living with that are from different cultures that you don't really know about, and making friends at school as well. So I sort of just focused on doing the small things that made me happy. I tried to travel a lot in my first semester, and it ended up being pretty educational looking back upon it. And now that was like the first sort of building block, and I'm having so much fun now that I'm really glad that I had that sort of, I wouldn't call it culture shock semester, but I don't know, the raw semester that I didn't really have a lot of other sort of social cushioning or anything.
Yeah, for sure. No. What about the rest of you guys? Like, I know a lot of people it was hard for them their first semester, like transitioning, but like, how was it the same for you guys, or did you feel like it was easier?
I think I also had kind of like a semi-difficult time at first, but it was less like it was more just like the first week, I guess, was kind of tough. And then once I started finding people and getting into the rhythm of classes and I had a schedule going, that made it a lot easier for me. I'm someone who like thrives off of structure. So I think once I kind of was able to find that rhythm and get into that flow, it made the process a lot easier. So just finding ways of giving myself things to do and going to club meetings and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I think making your routine abroad is so important. That's another thing. Like I know we touch on a lot in some of our courses with Beyond the States is like establishing that routine, because it's like you kind of have the rug pulled out from under you and you have to figure out like, okay, what's my grocery store I go to? Like, okay, what do I buy? What am I buying? Where's like the nearest pharmacy, the public transport lines, and like, okay, what's my class schedule? And like, once you have that like routine in place, like figuring that stuff out, it's just like kind of a maybe rough period in the beginning. So if like anyone is out there feeling in the thick of it, like, or stressed about that, I do think it sounds like passes. It's just like a rough patch that it's, I think, with anywhere, even if you move to a different state in the US, you have that experience. And I think, yeah, developing a routine really helps make you feel more at home and stabilized. So, but yeah, what about you, Maddox?
No, I would agree. It was hard. Different just because I had done a lot of, traveling and hopping around and kind of realizing, oh, like I'm actually settling down now, and what does that look like? I think one of the biggest kind of things I had to get out of my head that is a lot more common at US universities is I kind of know a lot of people have their like, oh, we're all in the same year. We're all first years, we're all second years. They have like their, oh, this is my friend group that I'm going to spend with for the rest of university. So a lot of the orientation events, they put us with the same year, and I kind of was putting myself out there being social and wasn't really landing with anyone. And I'm kind of like, oh, like this isn't what I was expecting. Like it feels to me like a lot of the Irish people have their own, groups and people already figured out. But after I broke out of that mold and kind of just made myself open to everyone, specifically the international community, I found myself having a lot more friendships and a lot more just, finding people that were interesting and that I wanted to spend my time with. Now I have fourth year friends and master's friends and third year friends and friends in a whole bunch of different academic disciplines. But I would say the hardest part to that is, given that it's an international, like heavily international university, a lot of my friends left last semester. So I had second semester with a clean slate, and I will experience it probably every semester that I'm at UL. Is just you meet people and then they leave, and you meet people and they leave.
Yeah.
But you get used to it, I will say. So
Yeah, I know that feeling very well. It's like the double-edged sword of making friends with Erasmus students or just, other international students who aren't doing like their full degree abroad or maybe are graduating soon. So, but I think, once you find your friends and like you kind of build your like own network, it really helps a lot to feel settled in. So, yeah, like off of that, like what I know we talked about a lot of things like we like about living abroad. What would you say like your favorite thing about like getting a degree abroad is, or just living abroad, or a few things if like it's too hard to narrow it down?
the weekend trips, the friendships, and the food.
Okay, nice. And by food, Irish food or the food that you're trying from? Okay.
That's what I was going to ask too.
Food in general. So like, for example, all my friends, all of us, we're going on these weekend trips, going back to home. We have these meals and things that we know how to cook, right? Or random childhood snacks that you think everyone knows about. And so, I'm hanging out with my friends, we're sitting on the dinner table, and one of them, pulls out some of the, I don't even remember what they're called, the French, there was like little meat sticks, the equivalent of like a French beef stick. If they heard me saying this, they would probably hate my description of it, but that's how I take it, right? And we're trying them, we're all enjoying them. Some people hate them, some people love them, but it's stuff like that like never would have experienced that before. But then just same thing too of, you get a text from a friend and they're like, hey, do you want to try this, family soup recipe, right? I don't know. So you go up, you learn how to cook it with them, you make it with them. And then afterwards you're trying some traditional meal that you also never would have tried if you stayed in the States.
Yeah.
That's so real. I think the cooking is something I did not expect at all. I have this German friend at school, and he's not that loyal to his home country, but when it comes to like food, very much. So I recently just spent Easter at his place, and the cooking was just so amazing. Also, European breakfasts are pretty different in my experience. It's a lot of eating buns and putting different stuff on it, and I don't know, I love it. I had some, specifically Spezi is the soda that my friend wanted me to try, and that's been really enjoyable. I'm kind of hooked on it now. Anyway, aside from food, I would say something that I love, and this is what I was sort of aiming at from the beginning, is just to be able to say, like, I'm graduating debt free. Like, I'm going to be out of here with no debt on my back. Right now, I'm at a point where I can support myself on my wages and tuition's paid off. And I'm just really happy because I know that's going to influence me for the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's such a huge thing to not have that burden on your back. I know people in their like 50s that are still paying off their student loans. So that is, and it just really like your quality of life, even if you do choose to move back to the States or wherever you end up, it significantly affects you. So I think, yeah, it's amazing. Like just the international experience and all the, things you get to try that you wouldn't have tried in, your hometown. And also sharing your culture too. Like I think I saw a random, I'll send it to you guys in our group, like Instagram post where it was like, oh, I didn't expect to become like an ambassador for my culture. And it's like, when and like I have a friend who's Bulgarian here, and she's like, oh, I'm not like super patriotic Bulgarian, but then like when I'm here in Rome, like I want to show everyone Bulgarian food, and she made like a ton of these like loaves of like Bulgarian bread for Easter. And she's like, yeah, I never did stuff like this at home, but for some reason, like when I'm living abroad, I want to share all my friends who like have never experienced like Bulgaria, or I'm maybe their first Bulgarian friend they made. And the same with like the US or wherever, like all the countries you meet. It's I feel like a lot of people take on that role where they're like proud to show, especially through food. It's a way people really can connect. And but yeah, Willa, what about for you? What are your like top 3 things?
I think that like the friends and the debt-free thing is definitely nice. And then I think just there's something about going to school abroad that feels very like, not like mind opening, but I definitely feel like I'm experiencing more things than I would have if I had stayed in the States. Like just generally there's more to see. It feels like there's more to do and more people to meet. I've met people from more countries than I ever have. Like just hearing so many different people's experiences, and like we were talking about food, getting to experience people's cultures through their food, or just hearing them talk about their home country and connecting over that, because we all come from like all of these different places, and even within the States, like it's fun talking to people who are also from the States and talking about their experience and the differences there. But I think, yeah, just having that kind of connection with other international students of all ending up in the same place and experiencing the same place in such different ways is really fun.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I feel like especially now I have more in common with like just random people from random countries than I do with like a lot of Americans back home that are around my age, because I feel like it becomes such a core part of your identity living abroad. I know that might sound a bit like cringy, but it's true. It's like it's become such a big part of your core identity and kind of a point to relate on with a lot of people. So you kind of end up bonding through this experience of living abroad. But I think it's a beautiful thing. And I like that you guys all like mentioned friendships and kind of like the different ways you connect through friendships. And food seems to be one that stands out. And then of course just the small pro of, graduating debt free, of course. So But anyways, I know we're running a bit over. Do we have time for one more question? You guys have any commitments or anything?
I'm fine.
Okay, perfect. So the last question I wanted to ask you guys is, what advice would you give to someone who's unsure about applying to schools abroad, who wants to, but they're feeling a bit unsure? I know it's a big question, so take your time if you need to.
I think I would say you have to do it because you don't know what you'd miss out on. You have you have very little idea about what you'd miss out on. When you're initially researching schools, you think you can get it all relatively from the websites you visit and pop culture's representation of living in Europe and the Pinterest boards that you make about European student lifestyle and stuff. But that's all like just so surface level. There's so much that I don't think any of us can articulate about actually living here and being in part of different cultures and just the education even, that you got to give it a shot. So I'm always really happy, I suppose, when one of my friends that goes back to, my hometown university at least spends a semester abroad, because they're like, whoa, okay, I had no idea. And then, at that point they're hooked and they want to come back. And so that's why I say you got to do it.
Yeah, I think that's a great piece of advice, like a great quote. Like, you don't know what you're missing out on. Like you have to experience it. Like there's just the depth of like all the experiences you'll have is something that like I wouldn't trade the world for. So, but yeah, what about the rest of you guys? Any piece of advice? Even if
I
it's
think
a small piece.
just like I think just like taking that leap and just really, going for it. I think it makes you feel very fulfilled, like going through that process and going abroad. And like Milo was saying, like you really don't know until you do it, but it's just such a special experience. And I think that like really pushing yourself and like having faith that it'll work out for you, and it's just like it's so special. And I think if you're thinking about it, just go for it.
Yeah, there's a reason why you feel drawn to it if you are drawn to it. So I think like you can't let doubt hold you back, because I don't know. I know that I wanted to live abroad from like the age of 12. Like, I don't know why, it was just always in my head. I was like trying to learn other languages on my own because of course it wasn't taught in elementary school how to learn a foreign language. So I think if it's like you have that inner desire to go, like you should just follow that, and there's a reason why you have it. So yeah, and only 1% of Americans actually like pursue a degree abroad. So it's like, or less than 1%. So you're part of like a rare, like, really small percentage of people. I think that's really special. And if you do feel that way, like be part of that, because it's so, you get to experience things that like only a small percentage of people experience. So, but yeah, what about you, Maddox?
Yeah, I mean, what Milo's talking about, FOMO, all I'm going to say is if you have massive FOMO, you will end up with more of it if you don't go to school in Europe. But a more legitimate approach to it is just, if you're considering it, I would tell you, find people in your life that studied abroad, ask their opinions on it, ask what they thought of it, and ask if they had the chance when they go back. Because what I've seen, even just being friends with Erasmus students, or when I was considering it and talking to my parents about it, everyone goes on, most people would say, go on a semester abroad and end up loving it and end up telling themselves, oh, like I would love to go back there one day, right? Why does it have to be a once in a lifetime opportunity? Why does it have to be a, one day thing? And ultimately, if you are considering it, I would hate for you to get to the point in your college degree where you study abroad and then end up realizing that you could have had that for 4 years.
No, that's so true. And I feel like also like what you mentioned, ask people's perspectives. And even if you don't have people around you who studied abroad, I know like I didn't know anyone who got their degree abroad besides people that I literally just like slid into their DMs, like people that I knew. I like stalked finding on my like study abroad page, like I don't know who was running like the student blog of like the for like I don't know, studying abroad in Germany, and like messaging them on Instagram like, hey, can we like have a Zoom call or something and like talk. And I wouldn't, you know, because I didn't really know anyone. Another thing too is like, shout out to you guys because you are creating content that's on our Instagram or on our socials and our YouTube beyond the States. So if you don't know anyone in your life, I would say like my advice would be to also check out our page because you guys are sharing your perspectives. As you know, we have in this in our first session. But yeah, like going on TikTok, going on Instagram and searching like American in Germany or studying in Edinburgh, like whatever like it may be, I feel like more and more people are sharing online about their experiences, and that's really helpful. That's something that I wish I would have done, because obviously like I don't even think TikTok was no, it wasn't a thing when or like as I was, people were posting on it as much when I like studied abroad. Of course, once I got my degree abroad, like everyone was posting on TikTok about their experiences, and like that would have been nice earlier on. But yeah, use the internet, look, you know, check out our page and other people's, you know, Instagrams or TikToks or YouTubes to kind of see what like their experiences. And their chances are you might find someone that's at the university that you're going to, so might have a very specific perspective. But go ahead, Milo, sorry.
I feel like when I was looking, I couldn't find anything from like anybody. Okay. I was like, this is all made in like 2015. I don't know anybody goes here. And there was this one guy in my hometown that my parents knew, and he had lived in somewhere in Poland for 2 years. And he was like my only source, and he was just like a nutcase. He like loved Poland so much that I was like, okay, there's got to be something here, but he's not translating it for me very well. But I think that's going to be the case with like Maddox said, somebody that you find that studies abroad, they're not going to be able to say why they loved it so much. It's all going to sound like, okay, that sounds like you're just living in a different place. But no, it's like it's a whole different thing, and that's why that nutcase couldn't really describe it to me properly.
No, yeah, like the best I can say is like it changes your life for the better, but it's so hard to like describe like those experiences to people. They have to experience it themselves. So, you know, as you all three said, I feel like too, in your answers, like take that leap of faith, because, you know, it's exciting, like the unknown of like who am I going to make friends with, what countries, like, and am I going to connect with, like how am I, you know, also like just like the, you know, where am I going to travel to, like all those unknowns can be scary but are exciting. And also, once again, there might be many unknowns, but one thing is like certain, that you are, you know, most likely going to be graduating debt free. So if the unknown is scary, focus on the light at the end of the tunnel, because but honestly, you are going to be like, in the end, like your worries, as you guys all mentioned, your first months were difficult, but now it's like a complete like 180 where you're loving your lives and have friends and stuff. So yeah. Well, anyways, guys, thank you so much. Thank you everyone who is watching our first session of the Abroad Squad. We will hopefully be planning another one soon, and we'll, you know, drop down in the comments what you have for suggestions on topics. I think friendships or maybe extracurriculars would be an interesting topic. But we can also discuss in our group, and also we would love to hear feedback from our listeners. But thank you everyone for joining our fabulous Beyond the States ambassadors. And yeah, we'll see you in our next Abroad Squad session.